Star Wars fans have had a torrid time when it comes to bounty hunter games. From the pain of losing Star Wars 1313, the cancellation of Amy Hennig's Project Ragtag, to the recent news of EA cancelling Respawn's in development Mandalorian game. So, Star Wars fans said, you know what, I'll do it myself. Star Wars Genesis is the closest we'll get for some time in experiencing a true Mandalorian bounty hunter game. I've come away extremely impressed. What I like about Genesis is that it feels like a throwback in Star Wars games to the games that we got in the 2000s. Its sole focus is just on being its own little Star Wars project. For those that don't know, let me explain what Star Wars Genesis is, and this is usually the part where people go, oh, well that's disappointing. But Star Wars Genesis is a mod list that attempts to convert Starfield into a new Star Wars experience, from the main narrative to species, weapons, planets, sounds, and cosmetics. As of this video, it is a combination of 315 mods working in tandem to create this new Star Wars experience. The biggest compliment I can give this project is every May 4th I do a Star Wars stream, and this year I wanted to play something a little bit different, and I came across this and I thought, you know what, we'll just boot the game up just for the day, and then I went and did an entire playthrough of it because I just had such a good time. I hear the question you're asking already. If I didn't like Starfield or I hated Starfield, will I like this? Does this make Starfield a better game, more appealing? And they're the questions that I want to answer in this video. Going back to what I said a moment ago, it feels like an early 2000s Star Wars experience. A, because Bethesda jank is still involved. B, because it's also of what Star Wars Genesis does narratively. One of my biggest issues with Star Wars games since Disney took over the reins was just how overbearing both Lucasfilm and Disney feel in the projects. Every Star Wars game that hits has to be so intrinsically tied to the canon, and as a result often feels so serious and quite safe. Star Wars Genesis creates its own lore and story, but with familiar characters too. Mechanically, you are still doing the same shit that you do in Starfield, the same locations, the same structure of the quests, but instead given Star Wars exposition, which, as a big Star Wars fan, is so much more exciting to me than what Starfield delivered. I will not spoil every character you meet here, but loading into the game to see ND5 replace Vasco, or go into Dantooine and Dantoo Town and seeing Admiral Akbar has replaced the Sheriff. It's characters that you love, and it feels kinda right.
You're part of something bigger now, and he hopes you'll make this place your home.
What's up, ND? Admiral Akbar?
You need to stand back now.
There were two moments in this playthrough that just blew me away in terms of the level of effort that had gone into making this feel a crafted Star Wars experience. In the main Starfield game, when signing up with the UC Vanguard, there is a section where you learn about the history of the IP, in what I would call a museum exhibition. But in Star Wars Genesis, they take that exhibition to give you a full lore dump of their own lore created here. From what happened in their Clone Wars, to their Galactic Civil War, to treaties signed. It's just stuff that I really love, man. And it took me from just enjoying the experience to being fully immersed in it. I won't spoil the other one, but it's on episode 9 of my playthrough if you're really interested. The Genesis page states that the project is heavily inspired from Star Wars Galaxies, KOTOR, and Legends, and you definitely feel that. The main story is focused on the Yuuzhan Vong. Now, the Yuuzhan Vong were kind of before my time. They're a Legends faction, and after finishing this, canon or not, I want to know more about them, to the point where I'm about to pick up some comics to read about them. I will preserve the story here for anyone who does play it, but yeah, I loved how they took the structure of Starfield's main narrative and wrapped it up in Star Wars. And as of right now, every major faction quest in Starfield has been converted into a Star Wars themed one. The UC Vanguard to the Imperials, the Freestar Collective to the Rebel Alliance, you got the Shadow Collective, and perhaps the most important one for the feeling of becoming the Mandalorian, the Mantis quest. Every major faction quest fits its Star Wars theme, and as a result, we'll see you meet some important personnel in the Star Wars universe. My favourite quest out of all of them was the Shadow Collective versus the ISB. Just like the main game, it was great, but it feels so much more realised here just because of the factions and the personnel. It's definitely my favourite faction quest in how it incorporates a legacy of Mandalore, something that fans will appreciate, from the locations to the characters involved. There is also an entire lore section on the Genesis website to fill you in on what happened in this Star Wars Genesis universe. Though, if you have no idea about how the Starfield narrative goes, I would avoid reading this entirely, as it may spoil some major reveals. I've spoke a lot about immersion. Star Wars Outlaws, regardless of what you think about the game, is to me still the most immersive Star Wars experience out there. But as a mod list, this is so impressive. Stepping out onto what was known as New Atlantis, that is now Coruscant, is overwhelming. Seeing protocol droids, astromechs, Rhodians, Mon Calamari, stormtroopers, Imperial pilots and technicians. It was just so sick, there's no other way to describe it. This is really impressive. Fucking astromechs getting about? Mate. Rhodian. They've even got like Star Wars advertisements. Holy shit. Gong droid! Gong droid! Bonk. Bonk. It should also be noted that this is not the final form of Star Wars Genesis, and as I record this, I've seen the work they've been doing to Coruscant in actually converting New Atlantis into the Coruscant planet. From the mood, the ambience, to flying ships in the sky. Star Wars Genesis is not the finished package. So yes, while the planets may have 3D models of them in the star map, for those that have played the base Starfield game, it doesn't feel like an entirely different location. But the tiny details in these locations do go a long way. From paintings becoming Star Wars themed paintings, credits being actual Star Wars credits, contraband items being droid heads, holocrons being high value items, Rebel and Imperial insignia being printed on the walls, every major faction name changing, visiting Nar Shaddaa and hearing Star Wars club music being played, seeing Hutt, the Crimson Dawn, the Pikes, all of it helps sell this Star Wars vision. Not to mention, one of the shopkeepers was an astromech droid. Oh, this is... I don't think this is the... Oh, I don't know, actually. Where's the staff member? Are you the staff? Sir Reginald? Ain't no way. Wow. It's really on the gameplay front that sold me on Star Wars Genesis. Not only is every weapon within Starfield being converted to that of a Star Wars one, it matches the sound and the kill animation. Blasters, I feel, have a greater punch and feedback than the base vanilla game, and enemy AI, while still often pretty stupid, seem to actually try and flank me. There was a moment on Coruscant where I was up against a load of purge troopers and they just all surrounded me in the different directions, and being low level, I just got killed. And this goes all the way down to the quality of life improvements too. Genesis recognises that nobody wants to spend a load of time being encumbered to be able to level up our carrying capacity, so it just lets you naturally allocate perk points wherever you want, alongside the fact that you level up so much faster in this game. There is still the same core mini-games here with lockpicking or persuasion, but something about Genesis made me feel like I have to engage with those systems less. You earn more credits than before from doing the missions, items are prize fairer than before, damage taken is based more on armor and perks than on the level you are. I base my playthrough on the concept of being the Mandalorian, and as a result, I resorted mainly to Mandalorian-styled weapons with pistols and snipers most of the time. And look, I know that Mandalorians use a variety of weapons, but I was focused on being Jin as Mando. Regardless, it felt like a natural Mandalorian experience. Given Starfield's bounty and faction system, the choices you make, the reliance on credits, it's a natural fit for a bounty hunter game. There are plenty of times in the game where it is noticeable that you are playing a mod, and a lot of that Bethesda jank will always shine through, from buggy mission steps or having to wipe out an entire office because one guard was there that they shouldn't have been. But between its repeatable bounty quests that you can go on, the factions and the choices that you make on those faction quests and who you align with, bribing or taking bribes, hopping between the different galaxies, it does lend itself to that Mandalorian experience. The game at the start gives you several options in how you want to start out in being a rebel pilot, a smuggler, a soldier. But I think for what Starfield is and the foundation of it, the bounty hunter path is the correct choice. As soon as I donned that Mandalorian armor, it didn't matter if you gave me Republic Commando armor, Cad Bane's outfit, Purge Trooper or Boba Fett's armor. The Mandalorian armor was never coming off. Even with the fact that these are still Starfield locations, they kind of fit into Star Wars at times. Coruscant is made believable with stormtroopers patrolling. Nar Shadar's neon lighting and atmosphere are a match made in heaven for exploring as the Mandalorian. And for where they set Mandalore, I think is also a terrific fit. And then when you add in the Star Wars soundtrack from main Star Wars riffs to the added tracks from games like The Force Unleashed, it just helps add to the experience. I'm excited to see, as these conversions progress, how the iconic Star Wars locations can become even more natural and converted. Many of Starfield's problems still remain here. Sure, there are all these planets to go to and roam, and there'll be the Trandoshan outposts, abandoned droid factories, smuggler camps, etc. But it's still the same kind of busy work in the main Starfield game, that when you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all. And will all those planets be used later down the line as the scope of Genesis goes wider? Maybe, but it is still the same repetitive outposts that you'd find in the base game. But if that's what you're after, and you just want to be the Mandalorian and clearing out camps, you'll love this. Attacking a Trandoshan outpost and then confronting an AT-ST can be as thrilling as a main quest, but also, as soon as you've done it once, it doesn't really vary after that. It was also nice to see how many of the companions here fit naturally into the Star Wars universe. Vladimir is a great fit for Captain Rex. You'll see others naturally rock Luke, Leia and Han's outfits from the original trilogy too. There is something in which we do need to touch on, and that is the usage of AI here. This is a really complicated one, as Star Wars Genesis uses AI to convert thousands of voice lines in the game to deliver the Star Wars experience required. That is how they've retooled the main quest, how they've retooled many of the conversations you'll have with your companions. So, when speaking about a faction, they'll refer to the Rebels, or refer to Geonosis, or Coruscant, or the Yuuzhan Vong. And it's quite difficult to talk about. A, because this is the internet and everyone argues over everything, and B, because mods are free, and therefore you can argue that nobody's really benefiting from the usage here. However, having seen what voice actors are fighting against, and what they're fighting for, their voice is their asset. And obviously, this therefore is a complicated issue, as this really is the very thing they're fighting against, of usage without consent. Genesis, in its attempt to create its own Star Wars narrative, would not be the same without this usage, and it's not realistic to expect a modding team to have the capacity or resources to be able to provide their own dialogue versus these billion-dollar companies who want to use AI so the executives can add an extra zero to the 9 that's already slapped onto their paycheck. So, I'm just giving you this information. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, as I said, this is the internet, and no matter what I say, there'll always be someone who disagrees or takes it too far. I just want to present you with the facts, so you can make your own informed decision whether you support this or you don't. My hope would be that some form of permission could be obtained, but if the voice actors found out and they requested removal, I would hope that that would be obliged. Even without speech, I still appreciate that this is a Star Wars package. It feels like a throwback RPG in that sense. Early MMOs, if you like, are bouncing between the quests in this larger Star Wars experience. Not every line here is converted, so sometimes they'll talk about Coruscant and they'll still say New Atlantis. And I feel that if that was the case and we remove the AI, this would still be a really good experience. So, Star Wars Genesis then. Look, I am biased. You put a Star Wars coat of paint on anything, and I'm already 10 times more interested. I've seen some sentiment that it's not really a full conversion, and look mate, you do you. But how ambitious this is in terms of so many mods combining together to deliver this package, to me, is absolutely astounding. Not to mention, as someone with very basic modern experience, this installation and to get this working was a piece of piss. It was around 60 gigabytes all in all. I do recommend a month of Nexus Premium, otherwise the downloads are capped at 2 megabytes a second and you'll have to manually click through every single mod and it will take you a long time. It is only available on the Steam version and you have to own Starfield Shattered Space DLC or it won't work. If Starfield has just received a new patch and you've updated it, you do need to wait until Genesis is made compatible with that. All of this is on the website though, so I won't bore you with all that. I will leave all of that linked in the description. To go back to the question I asked at the start, I think even if you dislike Starfield as an experience, but you're a Star Wars fan, I think there's something for you here. Whether it's the main narrative focused on the Yuuzhan Vong, whether it's living the bounty hunter experience, meeting key Star Wars figures, becoming immersed with all the different factions and species, flying the Millennium Falcon, or having the feeling of a Star Wars game that is ripe from the 2000s. This game has some pretty special moments. Hearing an iconic Star Wars theme as you look out onto the sunset with ND5, BD1 and R2-D2, the Millennium Falcon's parked behind you, it kinda reminds me of being a kid and making my own Star Wars stories with my toys. And that's why I love this a lot. Star Wars Genesis is incredible, and the best part is, it's not even finished. These additions from these extremely talented modders prove that, once again, if you have a passion for something and the willingness to create, special experiences can be made. And I'm blown away by the talent of every single mod that's been put into this game, and it's not just one person, it is the work of many, and it's incredible. And again, it comes back to usage, where the author of this mod list has paid a few people for the work and has said that, look, if you've made a mod and it's in this package and you don't want it here, we will remove it or we'll have conversations. And I like that. There's no doubt that even with this Star Wars coat of paint, if you have experienced Starfield, it will feel familiar at times, and the stories, they won't have the same impact. But there are still moments in how the narratives have been retooled that still manage to surprise me here. Right now, we're in a bit of an uncertain time when it comes to Star Wars games, with both nothing substantial when it comes to Star Wars Eclipse and the Knights of the Old Republic remake, with really just Jedi 3 and Zero Company on the horizon. I still hope that one day we get a true, made from the ground up Star Wars bounty hunter game. But as an experience for now, Star Wars Genesis comes pretty close. And that's how I feel about Star Wars Genesis. Let me know, what are you thinking? Are you going to try it? Have you tried it? Also, if a studio was to make a bounty hunter game, who would you want? But we can't say Respawn anymore because EA killed that dream. Let me know in the comments anyway. Regardless, if you enjoyed the vid, leaving a like helps a lot in supporting the channel. And if you're after Star Wars video game content, you found the right place. News, reviews, guides, streams, the full shebang. So make sure you're subscribed. All socials are linked below. Regardless, I hope you have a terrific day. Play games, get gains, and I will catch you in the next one.